Let's make sure we're recording. And we are. So, okay, let's go. Welcome, everyone. We're talking about 5 cybersecurity threats targeting real estate professionals and how you can handle them, because the real estate industry is a very volatile industry. The challenge with real estate is that there is so much money to be made. So it's easy for criminals to want to target real estate professionals. Um, I admire real estate agents. If you don't have your hustle on, you aren't going to really make money. So you're rock stars and superheroes because you help people find their dream home and make their dreams possible. The problem is there's a ton of scams. As I said before, real estate is a very lucrative business, so it's easy for cyber criminals to want to target the real estate industry. And why does that happen? Well, you folks are used to it, but to the average person, real estate transactions are just so complicated. And there are so many parties involved. It's hard for the average buyer and seller to keep track of what's going on. And the other thing that happens is agents are so busy running around trying to keep track of making their business work that they don't have time to really sit down and understand many of the threats that are out there. And buyers and sellers get confused because you're dealing with so many people. There's the agents, there's the inspector, there's the appraiser, there's the lending company. There are so many parties involved that agents and people don't know where the information is coming from. And like I said before, there is a ton of money to be made on real estate transactions. Just think about what the down payment of a house can be and the implications if someone were to intercept that down payment via wire fraud. But one of the most important things to understand when it comes to fraud or real estate scams and all of the threats that are out there, more than 99% of cyber attacks rely on human interaction. So this means that your devices are safe. They're completely safe. It boils down to making sure that you're educating yourselves and your buyers and sellers of all of the different data threats out there and how you need to handle them. Because as far as your computers, your laptops, your smartphones, your tablets, they're all safe from most of the cyber threats out there. It requires user interaction. So as long as you aren't clicking on stuff that needs to, or that you shouldn't be clicking on, or you're not interacting with phishing scams, you are protected from everything that's going on out there. So what can you do to make sure that you're safe? Well, stop clicking on stuff. It's pretty simple, but education's key. And as agents, you have to educate your buyers and sellers. You have to. You've got to be the one that enlightens them to say, hey, this is how we're going to conduct business, and you need to be aware of all of the different threats that are going on in the real estate industry. So where do we start? Well, I think we need to start by identifying the different threats that are out there. So let's take a look at threat number 1, which is general data breaches. Now, I have to say that in my tech expertise and dealing with agents for the past 27 years, as far as helping them with their technology, that most agents are their own worst enemy. And so data breaches are prevalent because of specific things that agents don't do. But let's talk about the threats, because that's important, because if you don't know, then you're not going to be able to protect yourself. So you've got data breaches that occur. Data breaches are when you allow someone to access your device because of weak passwords, or you clicked on something and you let somebody into your device. Also, you've got what's called credential stuffing. Now, credential stuffing has been around for a while, but it's become prominent in the past year or so because cyber criminals have so much information that's out there on the dark web. Um, your information has probably been leaked in a data breach and you weren't even aware about it. But what criminals do is they gather your credentials, whether it's a real estate professional, meaning they go to different realtor websites, they look at your information on social media, but they gather all this information and they try to figure out what your username and passwords are, or they find your real estate email address, they find the password that matches that on the dark web, and they use those credentials to start stuffing into different online profiles in order to get access to your personal data. You may not think that it's much in the beginning, but just think about how many web-based accounts that you have. You got email, you've got your different real estate software where you're using your email and your password, even home security. It all ties in together. So you have to take steps to make sure that you aren't becoming a victim of credential stuffing, making sure that you're changing your username and passwords on a regular basis. Um, the other things that you can do as far as making sure your credentials are safe is to make sure that other than changing your username and password, there are several websites that you can go to, and we'll talk about those later, as far as making sure that you are aware of some of the data breaches that have occurred and to make sure that your real estate email address is not fallen victim to those large scale data breaches. Number two threat is wire fraud. Now, wire fraud obviously is huge in real estate, and it is the process, obviously, of a buyer or seller getting a fake email from either the mortgage company or from your real estate office saying that they need to transfer a large amount of money to this account. Again, wire fraud requires user interaction. It's not like anyone's device is infiltrated unless an agent email has been compromised. Again, that goes back to changing your passwords. But wire fraud can occur in several ways, but normally it comes in the form of a phishing email that tricks the buyer and the seller into sending out large amounts of money to um, to a cyber criminal. And again, that can definitely be prevented as long as you make sure that you talk with your buyer and seller and explain what the process is that you're going to communicate with them. I know I had an agent ask recently, what about sending messages via text? Now you can text back and forth, but before you set up that process of texting or even emailing, make sure that the buyer and seller has your right information so that they're not getting an email that looks like it comes from you to trick them into sending out money, and make sure that the buyer and seller is aware that wire fraud scams occur. And I'm going to talk about the scams that are out there, and then we're going to talk about ways to prevent these scams. Our next threat is email and phone phishing. So email and phone phishing scams are huge. In fact, email scams are probably the biggest scams that are out there as far as um, data breaches are concerned. When you hear about large scale company data breaches, they're normally occurring because someone fell for a phishing scheme. An email came in from the boss, an email came in from uh, an authority figure and asked for personal information. And so the individual who received the email gives out the information. Now, this is a true story that happened to a real estate agent actually last week that we had to help. So, this started with a phishing scam. The agent got an email from her accountant. The accountant just sent out an email that was just basic. Hey, we need some more tax information in order to get access to your accounts. So the agent clicked on the link and went to the website and gave out all the personal information. And the next thing you know, their bank accounts were cleared out, all of it. Now, the mistake that this agent made was number one, they were using a free email account to do real estate transactions. Now, if you're doing free email for your real estate business, you really want to avoid that. But when you have a free email account, say Gmail or Hotmail, that you're using not only for your real estate business and for personal use, it's almost like the double whammy because you have so many accounts that are tied in to so many different online accounts. So if you're using your real estate business account to log into your personal or your business checking account, it's going to be an easy target for cyber criminals to get access to your information. So this agent, as far as this phishing scheme that she fell for, and it wasn't her fault because it was an email that looked like it came from her accountant. It was her fault because she didn't read the details of the email and just clicked on it and assumed that it was from her accountant. But at the same time, part of the blame falls on the accountant because they weren't doing their due diligence as far as letting people know how they're going to send information back and forth as far as the accounting office is concerned. So, like I said, phishing emails are major when it comes to people's devices getting quote unquote hacked. She called our office. Oh, my devices have been hacked. Well, no, the breach came from the simple fact, and I would advise you never to do this. With her online account, she had stored every password in a separate folder that was on her online account. So once the criminals were able to access that online account, they were able to get the usernames and passwords for all of those accounts and log into everything. So when it comes to passwords, which we will talk about, you don't want to store passwords in your email program. You can store them on your computer, you can store them on the browser. It's not on the web, it's not in a web-based email account. So phishing is going to be your biggest threat out there. So again, communicate with your buyers and sellers which method you're going to use to communicate with them and make sure they have the right information. You might even set up a specific email only for those transactions that you deal with buyers and sellers. You might want to consider creating a separate general email when you have buyers and sellers contact you initially, and then when you work with them on a regular basis, then you give them another email address. Phishing also can come in the form of a phone call. Let's say that someone does get access to your credentials. Maybe you bragged about a customer online. Maybe you posted a photo on social media that you're working with a specific customer. Cyber criminals are checking that out. Remember, as a real estate professional, your information's out there. So they can do a quick Google search and find out information about you and trick your buyers and sellers. So make sure you're careful about the information that you're sharing out on the web. The other thing that you want to watch out as far as scams are concerned is to make sure that you're securing your online accounts. It may be tempting just to use the old password, but consider using a passphrase, which is a phrase that takes the place of your password. One of the best passphrases that I always use is either stinky chicken or maybe purple rhinoceros. Nice long passphrase that doesn't tie any information to you. The challenge we have with passwords is that passwords tie us to our own personal selves. So in the process of trying to create a secure password, we normally fall back to things that are personal to us. And the challenge with that is most personal things, if you're an agent and you're active on social media, you're sharing that information anyway, or it's part of your social media platform. Just think about your date of birth or your birthplace or your current city. Many times those words fall in with either our passwords or our password reset words that we would use to reset our accounts. So you want to make sure that you're not using anything personally tied to you when you're using passwords. And if you get into the habit of using passphrases, make sure that you're using different passwords or passphrases for all of your online accounts. Another thing you want to do with all of your online accounts that this agent had not even done was to set up two-factor authentication on all of your online accounts. Many of the web-based software, such as Google and Hotmail and AOL Mail, will show you where you have logged in last so that you can keep track and make sure that it's not coming from a location that is foreign to you. But two-factor authentication works where it does not grant someone access to your online accounts if they're logging in from a different area. The way it works is you enable it with your online account, and then you get an alert via text or a pop-up on your smartphone letting you know that someone's logging into your account. You have to give permission to log into the account in order for and that was Alexa letting me know a package arrived. But anyway, two-factor authentication works when it pops up and lets you know that someone is logging into your account. So it's a really good idea to enable two-factor authentication on all of your online accounts to make sure that you are protected from any outside threats. Because again, your credentials can be leaked on the dark web and you not know it. But if you've got two-factor authentication in place, then it's going to let you know that someone is logging into your account and they shouldn't have access to it. As far as keeping up with all of those different passwords for all of those online accounts, you want to use a password keeper to make sure that you are keeping all those separate passwords secure. So you can use a program like LastPass to make sure that all of your passwords are protected, but you can also save that password information in your browser. So if you're using Firefox or Chrome or Safari, you can enable the option that will save those passwords onto your browser. Now, the thing with passwords in a browser is those passwords are stored on your device, meaning they're not on the dark web, they're on your device. And it also gives you a way to access those passwords if you need to see them. But the key thing with your passwords is to make sure that you want to make sure that your passwords are different for all of your online accounts. They have to be different, because if they're the same, then it makes it a lot easier for cyber criminals to access your online accounts if they were to get that information. One final thing, and this goes back to how you interact with your buyers and sellers, you want to make sure that you are encrypting your emails when if you use emails to interact with your buyers and sellers. And so most popular email services have encrypted email. And so what you want to do is you want to encrypt that email before you send it out. Now, depending on which program you use, there's a different set of rules on encrypted email. And there's a great website that I'm about to share with everyone via our chat, and that's from Panda Email, and it shows steps on how you can encrypt email for different services. Now, again, I stress as real estate professionals that you don't use your free email accounts for real estate transactions. Now, if you want to, you're doing it at great risk, because those free email accounts are just easier for cyber criminals to get access to, because they can send a mass email to all of those free email accounts. You fall for a phishing scam and you give criminals access to all of your data. You don't want that to happen. So the best thing for agents to do is to go out and purchase your own domain and send out emails from your domain, and have multiple emails out from that domain. So if you're a real estate agent, you want to use your first name and your last name at yourdomain.com. So if I were to set one up, it would be burtonkelso.com, which I do have. But as a real estate professional, you want to set up your own domain. Just call GoDaddy or one of the other web providers and set one up. It'll help cut down on the spam. It'll help cut out on some of that tricky email out there. Now, step number 4, as far as the scams that are going on out there, and like I said, again, we are going to talk about these 5 scams as far as how to protect yourselves. But the impersonation scam is huge, 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 because there are people, because they know the amount of money that is involved in real estate, that will go out and actually impersonate real estate agents. And it's easy. All you need to do is get a search on social media or even do a Google search to find out which agents are in the area. And then you can set up your own domain, your own website. You can set up everything and just impersonate people. And it can be done for the purpose to get money. Also, it can be used to cause physical harm to agents too. But there's a great utility that you can use to make sure that you understand what's going on as far as and as far as you as an agent and what your online reputation is. And that is Google Alerts. If you're a real estate agent and you haven't signed up for Google Alerts, you need to sign up for Google Alerts because it is free and it can definitely help you keep track of what's being said and what's being created about you as a real estate professional. The way Google Alerts works is pretty simple. If you have a Gmail account, or if you don't have a Gmail account, you can go to google.com/alerts and set up your Google Alerts. Now, Google Alerts allows you to put in whatever parameters you want to keep track of stuff that shows up on Google. You can put your name, you can put real estate, you can put anything in Google Alerts. But as you protecting your reputation as an agent, you want to put yourself in, and then you can schedule Google Alerts to send you an email out on a regular basis. You can make it daily, you can make it weekly, you can even make it monthly. But this way you have a utility or a tool that is scouring the internet to make sure that no one is saying anything bad about you. I'd have to share another real estate true story because I work with quite a few agents. There was an agent who we still work with who had someone put on their personal blog that she was the worst real estate agent ever. And that happened, as far as this blog post, probably about 15 years ago. If you were to Google this agent, you would still see the bad blog posts that this person put up on the website. And the challenging thing about blog posts is that they're owned by an individual or a company. So it's not like a horrible Google review where you can write Google or Yahoo, whoever the negative review was put up, to try to get people to get that information taken off. If it's on someone's personal blog or even their social media, then that can have a bad effect on your reputation as a real estate agent. So if you know that information going forward, if someone looks that up, at least you have the tools to come forward and say, hey, I had a bad transaction with this person. Just didn't work out great, but I've got great reviews to counteract that. So another thing, as far as an agent's concerned, maybe you set yourself up as a Google place. So that way you can have positive reviews. Same thing with social media to counteract the negative reviews that you may get. Encourage your buyers and sellers to leave you a positive review on social media. The big Google searchable sites right now, as far as reviews are concerned, are both Google and Facebook. So if you've got any of those tools, make sure that you're reaching out for the positive reviews to counteract anything that's negative about you. But then also with Google Alerts, make sure that you are aware of some of the stuff that's being said about you so that you can tackle it firsthand. Now, our next and final scam is good old ransomware. Now, ransomware is malicious software. It's software that will take control of your files and documents, and it will destroy them or encrypt them. So ransomware will not only affect your personal devices, meaning your laptops, your desktops, even your smartphones and tablets. Ransomware is so vicious that it will go to the cloud and it will encrypt or lock those devices up. And it'll leave a message like this one that says, oh my gosh, your files are encrypted. You need to get a unique key to get access to this information. Now, sometimes with ransomware, you'll get just the ransom message that says you need to pay money in order to make sure that you pay the money or pay the ransom. Other times it's a real threat where your files have been destroyed. And the other bad thing about ransomware is that not only will your files on your devices get infected, encrypted, infected, it'll also go to any cloud storage service such as Dropbox or my iCloud or OneDrive. Any of those cloud services, it will encrypt the files in the cloud as well, destroying them. So it's vital that you have some sort of protection on your computer if you goof up and fall victim to ransomware, or that you have a backup with redundancy to make sure that you're protected from this threat. So I've listed the 5 threats out there. So how can you keep safe from these threats? I know that's why you tuned in to this webinar. You want to know, how can I stay safe from this? Well, of course I'm going to tell you, because you have to take it upon yourself. Your role as a real estate professional has really changed in recent years. You've got to protect your buyers and sellers. You really have to take steps and educate them to make sure that they know about the latest threats that are out there. Now, one of the ways to kind of make yourself a good agent or a top agent, top producer, is that maybe you would host the occasional tech tips video as part of your real estate marketing plan to alert buyers and sellers of the scams that are out there. It would be a good way to build up your brand, but at the same time, it's a good way to educate people. But also when you have that sit down with your buyer and seller, and of course it's going to be a Zoom or a video conferencing tool, make sure that they understand how you're going to work so that you can keep them safe. One of my recommendations back when we get out of all this is to either just have that one-on-one conversation with someone. Just don't jump in and start doing stuff. Have the one-on-one conversation to let them know how you're going to work. That's important. I know I've said that many times, but communication is key. One of the other threats, now that we're talking about conferencing, would be Zoom or Zoom bombing. So I've obviously taken steps to make sure that this Zoom meeting is safe and secure. But the more that you are talking with your buyers and sellers and other colleagues, you want to make sure that your conversations are going to be safe and secure too. Now, there's ways to make Zoom safe, but again, there's also other tools that you can utilize in order to have safe and secure conversations. Now, you might want to write some of these down because there's a ton of video conferencing software. So we'll start off with my iPhone. You can see a reflection of things in there, but there's my iPhone. And if you've got an iPhone, obviously you can FaceTime. So if you've got a buyer or seller that you need to talk with face-to-face via video, use FaceTime. FaceTime has what's called end-to-end encryption. So does Zoom, but you had to enable it, but it's built into FaceTime. So if you have a buyer or seller who has an iPhone, FaceTime them. Your conversations will be safe and secure, and you don't have to worry about any leakage. You can also use Skype. You can Skype back and forth. Skype has got end-to-end encryption, and it's a free app you can use to talk with people, because under most circumstances as agents, when you're having video conversations with your buyers and sellers, you're having one-on-one conversations. So yes, you can use Zoom if you're having like a virtual happy hour, or there are multiple parties that you need to talk to at the same time. But there obviously are steps that you need to take in order to make sure that Zoom conference call is safe, which I'm going to go into in a few seconds. But in the meantime, don't sleep on some of the other video conferencing tools that you can use to make those quick calls. So again, Skype. You can also do FaceTime, which has got end-to-end encryption in it. You can use Facebook Messenger, which has video conferencing in it, but it is secure. But make sure that you have the proper settings before you jump in and use anything right now. The two that are secured, that I know for sure right out the box when you use it, are Skype and FaceTime. So consider using those as far as talking with your buyers and sellers. Now, as far as Zoom is concerned and our whole Zoom bombing fiasco, some of the things that you want to do when you start these Zoom conferences is number one, you want to use a new user ID and password every time you set up a Zoom meeting. When you set up a Zoom account, and we'll talk about how to set that up here, you have the option of using the same Zoom ID for each of your meetings. Now, this is good because people can just jump into the same meeting, but at the same time, it puts you at risk because cyber criminals can get a hold of that information. Or what if one of your buyers and sellers' emails was compromised and the cyber criminals saw that you were hosting Zoom meetings on a regular basis? Then it's open to them. So you have to think about it from that perspective. So always allow Zoom to set up a random ID when you're setting up your Zoom meetings. Now, when you're setting up a Zoom account, make sure that you're not using the option that allows you to log into Zoom via Facebook or Google, because when you do that, you're basically allowing Zoom to use the same password credentials that you use for Facebook and Google. And one of the things you don't want to do is to use the same username and passwords for your online accounts. So when you set up your Zoom account, make sure that it's safe and secure, and you're using a different password so criminals can't get into your Zoom accounts. Another thing you want to do is you want to disable the join feature when you're setting up a Zoom meeting. You want to be the first one to join. Also, you want to put people in the waiting room so that you can scrutinize who is trying to join your Zoom meeting, and then you can allow them to join the meeting. You can allow them to join the meeting. And let's say a bomber does get into your Zoom meeting. You want to make sure that you enable the option to disable people to rejoin your Zoom meeting if you kick them out. To keep your participants safe, you want to disable screen sharing. You also want to disable file sharing as well, so that people can't send malicious files to your meeting participants. If you record your Zoom meeting, let's say you're having a real meeting and you want to record it, make sure to save that recording locally to your computer and don't save it to the cloud. And then finally, with two final things, when your meeting is started, you want to make sure that your participants are locked in the meeting. So lock your meeting. And then finally, in the Zoom meeting, not by just closing the window, make sure you actually click on the end meeting button to end your Zoom meeting. Something else to make sure that you're keeping safe and secure when you're working at home is those pesky smart devices. And I'm going to say this, and hopefully I can activate someone's device. So if I said, "Hey Google," or "Alexa," it has probably activated your smart device if it's in the office with you. So again, "Hey Google," "Okay Google," "Alexa." You want to make sure that those smart devices are off when you're talking or having your conversations, because smart devices are designed to listen in. They're designed to listen in. So if you don't want your sensitive information to be in the hands of Google or Amazon, mute those smart devices, or better yet, make sure that you are working in a room where you don't have a smart device installed. Now, for both Google and for Amazon, you can go into the app and make sure that the recordings that you make every time that you say, "Hey Google," or "Alexa," that they're deleted. Just go into the app for the device, go to settings and security, and make sure that those recordings are turned off, because the challenge is when these recordings are made, they're uploaded to your Google or Amazon account. If a cyber criminal gets access to your account and you're talking real estate business online, it's easy for a cyber criminal to get your information, figure out who your buyer and seller is, and scam them out of money. So you want to do everything you can in order to make sure that you don't fall victim to a real estate scam or have your buyers and sellers fall victim to it as well. So get those security settings and make sure that you are careful when you're working around your smart devices. Another step to keep yourself safe is to check and see if you have been part of a large-scale data breach. You can do this by going to the website haveibeenpwned.com, and I'm going to type that in the chat session here so everyone will see it. Have I Been Pwned is a website that allows you to see if cyber criminals have found your information or if your information has been leaked on the dark web. And there's a link for haveibeenpwned.com. What you do is you take your email address, and hopefully it's a personal email address, and you haven't been doing double duty and using your real estate email address as your personal email address. Put your email address in, both personal or real estate or whatever. If you've been pwned, that it lets you know that your emails have been out there on the web, and that you need to go in and change any password that you've used with that online account. One other thing that you can do to make sure that your passwords are safe, and for this one I have to cheat because I always forget the name of it. There is a utility that you can install if you're a Google Chrome user called the Google Password Checkup Extension. Now, what the Checkup Extension does is that it will check online on the dark web to see if the password that you're currently using is being used by anyone else. Now, the key is if it's being used by multiple people, that means it's in a list of passwords that people normally use. So if you install this tool in your Chrome browser, it will alert you if someone has access to your password. And of course, if that happens, you want to turn it off. Another site to make sure that your information hasn't been leaked in a large-scale data breach is Fighting Identity Crimes. Now, fightingidentitycrimes.com is a website that allows you to check to see if any company that you've worked with has been breached since 2012. Most of the times your information is leaked because of a large-scale data breach. So that information is floating on the dark web and you don't know it. Companies are breached all the time. If you go to fightingidentitycrimes.com and go to their breaches and scams section of their website, then you can see how often companies have been breached, and you can take steps to make sure that you follow their steps is what you need to do. Now, depending on what information has been leaked, whether it be first name, last name, address, social security number, or just emails, there are certain steps that you need to take to make sure that you are safe. If important information has been leaked, such as social security, then obviously you need to sign up for LifeLock or any identity protection services out there. Now, with social distancing, this isn't going to become a problem, but you still need to watch out for it. That free Wi-Fi. So probably one of the only instances that I can think of right now where you would have to deal with free Wi-Fi would be if you were to go to the dealership and decide to use the free Wi-Fi. Or for some reason you wanted to hang out at Walmart and use the free Wi-Fi there, or Home Depot, you can use it there. But you want to be careful when using free Wi-Fi. If you do, if you're out and about and you need to access the internet because you've got to conduct a real estate transaction, please get a VPN or use a Wi-Fi hotspot to do those real estate transactions, because both the VPN and a Wi-Fi hotspot are going to keep you safe and secure and make sure that those real estate transactions aren't going to be compromised. Another way to keep yourself safe is to make sure you're backing up your information. Now, when it comes to backup, some people think that they need to just transfer their information to their flash drive. Now, we'll tell you, as far as your flash drive is concerned, you can use this for temporary storage, like if you wanted to move information from your desktop computer to your laptop computer. But you don't want to use your flash drive to back up information. It's great. You got a presentation, you want to load it on a flash drive, have it with you, load that presentation, that's all you're using it for. But if you're an agent and you're relying on a flash drive like this to back up your information, you need to stop, because that was not the intention of flash drives. They were meant as temporary storage to save your information so that you could take it from point A to point B. Flash drives normally have a short life. So you're probably, if you use one on a regular basis, if you're moving files from one location to the next, you're looking at about 2 years as far as that information is concerned. So never use flash drives for backup, only use them for temporary storage. Now, there's other ways you can back up your information. Now, if you have a desktop computer, then obviously a external hard drive is going to be good. Laptops can use external hard drives too, but the problem is when you have a laptop, the last thing you're thinking about is taking out your external hard drive to restore to back up your information. Open your laptop, you're working, You thinking about plugging in an external hard drive? I don't think so. So my preference as far as backup is concerned is to use cloud backup. Now, cloud backup really only comes in one form, and that's with the cloud backup service. You've got different services out there, like your cloud storage services, like Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive or even iCloud Drive. Now, the whole purposes of storage, online storage of this nature, is to make sure that your information can be accessed from anywhere in the world. So if you were wanted to load your files in the cloud, you wanted to work remotely, that's what it's for. If you had files at the office, you want them accessed at the office and at home, you could load them into a cloud storage service. But with cloud storage services, like the ones that I've mentioned, there is no redundancy, meaning that if something catastrophic like ransomware were to go up and destroy those files, or if there was a fault with that service, your information's gone because there's only maybe one or two sets of those files. And some people get into the habit with cloud storage to make sure that that's their only place where they're storing files. So make sure that if you're using a cloud storage service, that it's in at least two locations, that it's on your device, and of course it's on the cloud too. Don't just store it up in the cloud because major things can happen. Or if you only wanted to store it in the cloud, you might want to use what I call a true backup service. And there's two out there. There's Carbonite, which is at carbonite.com, and the other service is Backblaze. And Backblaze and Carbonite offer unlimited backup services for as low as $70 a year, or I should say $72 because the price has gone up. But these services will automatically back up your files to make sure that your information is safe and secure. And both of these services will back up your information for 30 days worth of data. So if something happens and you're gone for a week, or you lost a week's worth of data, you can always go to Carbonite at carbonite.com or Backblaze at backblaze.com to make sure that your information is safe and secure for 30 days. Next, as far as keeping your information safe, you want to make sure that you are password protecting your devices. You're at home practicing social distancing, but at some point you may go out and you may have to take your smartphone with you or your computer. Make sure it's password protected. If you lose that, especially with emails, agents are so guilty as far as using email as a file cabinet. You keep everything in them. I know I do for my IT business, but I clear out the sensitive data just in case our email is compromised. Most people just store everything in email because it's such a convenient way to get access to stuff. So if you're carrying around a smartphone or a tablet with you, or even a mini computer, make sure it's password protected. So if you lose it, then people can't get access to your stuff. Another way to keep yourself safe from some of the scams out there is to quit using free email services, and they are all listed here. There's Gmail, there's Outlook, and that's outlook.com, which is different than Microsoft Outlook, just to make sure that everyone understands the difference. With Outlook is an application that's installed on your computer, and you can use any email. But Outlook.com is the old Hotmail that's been renamed. And I think Microsoft did this in order to confuse people. But Outlook.com, Yahoo, there's agents that I know that still use AOL email. Nothing wrong with using it for personal use, but you don't want to use it for real estate. You want to get a domain. Your first name, your last name.com. Get a domain. It's going to keep you safe out there, and it's going to cut down on the breaches. Another way to protect yourself is to make sure you're encrypting your smart devices, your phone. It's just a matter of putting a password on it. If you've got a Windows or a Macintosh computer, you've got encryption services built into it. Windows users can use BitLocker. Apple users can use File Vault to keep their devices safe. So encrypt them, because a password on your computer can easily be hacked. An encrypted device is almost impossible. Going back to our free, um, or I shouldn't say free, but your online usage as far as hotspots, hotspot is going to keep you the most secure. So I talked about it earlier. Hotspots, it doesn't have to necessarily be from Verizon, but a mobile hotspot or VPN are probably the best ways that you want to keep your information safe if you find yourself needing to do a real estate transaction. Um, Software updates, they're a pain in the butt. I know. I hate them. And true story, they always occur whenever I do a presentation. So luckily, I had to make sure that there were no updates that needed to be enabled. If there were and they weren't downloaded, it was a good possibility we may not be on this webinar now. But doesn't matter what device you own, you want to make sure that your device has the latest and greatest updates installed. Why? Well, those updates come down for a reason. All of the hardware and software manufacturers offer what's called a bug bounty. A bug bounty is a bounty that's put out to the hacker community to challenge them to see if they can find any holes or exploits in hardware and software. When hardware and software is designed, manufacturers design it to the best of their ability. It's installed or designed in a lab, so it's challenging for them to see it from an outside perspective. So the bug bounty allows software and hardware manufacturers to see their hardware and software from an outside perspective, exploits that they may not have even thought about because they've been in-house designing this stuff. So some bug bounties are up to $1 million, and I think that's what Apple is offering. So when an exploit is discovered, the software or hardware manufacturer will verify this information, and once it's been verified, then they will go through and issue a software or hardware update. So when these updates come down, and when it's time to update your operating system, you need to do it immediately because it means it's a known threat out there as far as your device being compromised. As far as updates are concerned for your devices, your operating systems need to be up to date. So if you're a Windows user, my God, you need to be using Windows 10. If you're using Windows 7, got good news for you. You can still update to Windows 10 for free. I know it ended back in 2016, but Microsoft is still offering it for free. So you can update that old Windows 7 or Windows 8 device and take it to Windows 10. Because even if you're using Windows 8, not really being supported by Microsoft. So support ends officially in 2023, but trust me, Microsoft's not really updating Windows 8. As far as you Macintosh users are concerned, you have some options out there. You've got Catalina, which is the latest and greatest version of Mac OS, but Apple is a little bit lenient as far as letting you use older operating systems. So if you're still running, and I thought I had a slide for it. It kind of threw me off, but I will list them out here. So if you are running Mojave, and if you're running High Sierra still on your Mac, then you can still be supported with Apple and get the latest and greatest updates on your device. As far as antivirus software, which was that next slide that popped up, if you're a Mac user, XProtect is built into your Mac. So if you've got any other antivirus software installed on your Macintosh device, you can definitely remove that because XProtect is already installed. So if your IT guy has said, hey, you need this protection, not on your Mac, you don't, because it's built in. What about you Windows users out there? I know you're curious about this and wondering what you should use, but believe it or not, Windows computers also have antivirus built into it, and it comes in the form of Windows Defender. It's a little shield that's down in the lower right-hand corner next to the computer time. But Windows Defender has been around since Windows 7. And back during that period of time, which was 11 years ago, Windows Defender sucked. It really did. It just didn't do a good job as far as protecting your devices from antivirus software. So now Microsoft has really stepped up their game. So if you've got Norton or Kaspersky or AVG or Avast or Bitdefender, take that stuff off. Enable Windows Defender. And the good thing about Defender, when you install third-party antivirus software, it kind of just moves to the background. It's like, well, you really don't need this, but if you want to run it, I'll just kind of sit back here and let you let it do its thing. But when you change your mind and come back to me, I'll just pop back into the foreground, and then I'll begin protecting your system again. So if you've got Norton, it's been causing you problems, it's near end of life, and you don't want to pay the 70 or 80 bucks. Same thing with the other antivirus programs out there. Once you install them, Windows Defender will just pop up and start protecting your device, and there's nothing that you need to worry about. Also, as a real estate professional, it's a good idea to become what's called a cyber liar when it comes to your online identity, when you're dealing with social media, and when you're dealing with those pesky security questions when you're setting up your online accounts. When you become a cyber liar, you're making sure that people can't use information that you normally would share online and use that to get access to your online accounts. Because when it comes to uh, our personal selves and our professional selves, we're sharing most of our personal information on social media and on other online platforms. So make sure that if you are sharing personal family secrets, don't make that part of your password reset or password information. Become a liar. Lie about that information. You don't have to post what school and the year you came out with this whole let's celebrate the class of 2020 tribute by posting our graduation photos. You can post your graduation photo. Nothing wrong with that. But you want to exclude your high school and the year, because that information is the information that you normally would use as questions to reset your passwords for your online accounts. And if cyber criminals find out your email address and your password, then they definitely can access your online accounts. So to kind of sum up things as far as real estate scams are concerned, it's it's important that you take steps to educate yourself and your buyers and sellers as far as the things that they need to do in order to keep themselves safe and secure from all the cyber threats out there. Cybercrime is a constant changing arena, but the tactics that cyber criminals use will always stay the same. With most tech devices being safe and secure, you don't have to worry as much of your personal device being hacked by what they call blunt force hacking, as far as them trying to figure out different ways to get into your devices. Now, keep in mind, there are different bugs and different bots that are searching the internet trying to exploit lesser protected devices. So if you have an old Windows 7 computer or using an older iPhone or Android device, you are susceptible to attacks from those old bots out there. But as far as newer current threats out there, it's just a simple matter of making sure that you are securing your devices by making sure they're up to date and making sure that you don't click on anything, and understand that cybercrime is a area where it requires you to interact with that stuff. So know the threats and make sure that you're keeping steps to stay safe. So just to bring a quick end to our presentation, and then I'll end the recording process. And then if you've got any questions, you can text me, or we can re-enable the voice chat and you can verbally ask questions. But again, my name's Burton Kelso. I'm the Chief Technology Expert at Integral. Basically, we are like Geek Squad for real estate agents. We can do remote for your devices, make sure you're safe and secure. If you just want to keep up with the latest cyber crime threats and information out there, be sure to follow me on social media. You can just follow me at Burton Kelso, or you can even email me at burtonkelso.com. I'll share my email address with all of you so that you can contact me. But like it says, I love technology. I've read all the manuals, and I definitely want to make technology fun and exciting for you. So I'm going to end the recording process.